no way out. Find out how your life, family, and assets can be stolen from you while you are the one paying for it. Join me, Debbie Carroll, at the fourth branch of The Truth Emerges on Blog Talk Radio, Thursday nights from 6 to 8 Pacific Time. We need everyone on board to understand what is happening and put a stop to this evil corruption.
Hello, folks. This is Debbie Carroll. You are listening tonight to the Fourth Branch. This is a live show if today is Thursday, November 9th, 2017. If it is not Thursday, November 9th, you are listening to the show in archives, which you have already accessed via the links to the show. And if you are listening tonight, you can call in. The call-in number is 347-855-8301. And if you're ready to talk, you press 1. We're going to ask people to hold off unless they have been brought in by our pre-planning here. I have a very special guest tonight and many of her friends who will be joining us. I'm going to introduce Khulud here in just a moment, but I did want to take a minute to introduce myself and my podcast, The Fourth Branch. The reason that this show is called The Fourth Branch is because the fourth branch of government is we the people. And that was reminded in a recent 1994 federal case. It was Williams versus USA. And Antonin Scalia talked about the fourth branch being the people. He specifically mentioned the use of the grand jury as a form for the people to have unimpeded access to provide oversight for their government. And my philosophy is that we have been complacent and powerless for far too long, that our public schools are not teaching people how to use the rights that we have been fortunate enough to have mandated to protect us. Our liberty interests must be guarded against being stolen by our very own government, and most people don't even know where to go to lodge complaints. And that's been my experience. I was a homemaker and school teacher and mother of 3 children for 33 years of my teaching career, and I lived quite fine without ever knowing about the legal abuse that was happening to family members, to really understanding. I was buying all the mythology. I was buying the mythology of mothers on welfare and deadbeat fathers. I was buying the mythology that we have rights in our courts. I did not know that administrative courts, such as the family court, the juvenile courts, the probate courts, the traffic courts, that people are not being guarded with their constitutional protections, and that the flagrant violations of our rights are just allowed to occur. I did not know that judges were owning the mortgage companies that we buy, that they own supervised visitation centers. I didn't know that that the district attorney and the public defender were working together to get outcomes to raise the funding for the state. And so I was pretty asleep, and now I'm not. I became involved in the family court system through a friend who I found out had 2 ex-husbands over the course of 10 years, and they were allowed to consolidate their cases against her, to have hearings at the same time. They used the same attorney, and the magistrate always ruled in favor of the team. And she was fighting by herself. And I couldn't believe she had never been, I couldn't believe what was happening to her, because she had never been found to be unfit, to be neglectful, or to be abusive. She had just run into a family court racket in Jefferson County, Colorado. And I became energized at that point. But when I really became focused was when I received a copy of the Memorandum of Procedures that clearly stated that Child Protective Services and the Department of Human Services is removing children from parents over generations by policy. it is their policy statement that if a parent has a history of similar issues, that the child will not be reunified with the parent. And the most frightening aspect of this memorandum of procedures that was published by the Colorado Judicial Branch as a training manual is that children will be reunified with a parent who has a history of sexual abuse against the child, as long as that parent is not in denial. And I always ask people, do you understand what that means? And so we'll let that question sit out there. What does it mean that if the parent is not in denial, the child will be reunified? What does that really mean? And so I have been very active and very public about my activism. I became the holder of the first banner that I ever saw. That was the Family Court and CPS Kidnapped Children 25-foot long crime scene yellow tape banner that I received from another activist. And I have traveled to Houston, Texas with that banner, to Albuquerque, New Mexico, and to 24 of Colorado's 64 counties, and taken pictures in front of the county courthouses. I've stood on the steps of the Colorado State Capitol and of the Colorado Court of Appeals with the banner, and I've spoken to legislative committees. I've spoken to the Commission for Judicial Performance Review. I've spoken to anybody and everybody who will listen. And when I saw Khulud's story on Facebook and her talking about the wonderful rally that was held, I think it was yesterday. I'm not sure. She'll tell us. So I called her and said, you know, I want to know what's going on. And she provided me with an article written by Michelle Chan, who may be on the call as well tonight. And it can be found on the Fourth Branch under the comment section. You can read about Khulud's story, and you can also see the video of her with Yusuf. And so with no further ado, I'd like to introduce my very special guest, Khulud Salar. Hello, Khulud.
Hello, how are you?
Good. I can barely hear you.
Thank you for having me on your show today, Debbie. Can you hear me okay now?
It's not as good as it could be. So maybe you do need to use the phone. I don't know. That's a lot better. Okay. So I don't know how to explain this to people, but we are doing a simulcast or a live streaming this call. And do you know where people can find it? It's at March Us. So, Ted, can I bring you in to speak about that?
Of course, yes, I am here. I don't know if you have my mic on Blog Talk, just make sure it's on. But
it's on now, yes.
All right, so yeah, the Marchus Facebook page, the Marchus YouTube channel, and the Marchus Twitter, as well as countless other social media platforms around the world. This is the first time I've helped you broadcast, so we're testing the waters, and future broadcasts will be able to get things cleaned up 100%. But I really, especially after last night's show, the March's show, when Khulud came on, it was very apparent that she was, you know, it's horrible what is going on with CPS. Every situation is a complete freaking nightmare, and Khulud's situation is no different from the others. It's new to us, and the topic of last night's show, my show last night, was how we stay on topic to benefit people, not go round and around on things that don't mean anything. Because what she is going through, what you're going through, Khulud, is just the most horrific form of treason. Your family is being destroyed from or by the country that you live in. It's unheard of in history. It's never happened in history, unless you go back to Rome, when the Romans, but even the Romans, they didn't take their own kids, they took the Visigoth children, and the Visigoths ended up sacking Rome because of it. So now we're having the most detrimental thing a country can do to itself is enslave its own people. And the way you portrayed your situation last night, you started crying on the show, and the show wasn't specifically about individual cases. It was about how we talk about our issues and how we focus on our issues. But I wanted to do whatever I could to help promote what you're going through, because there is a solution individually. In each case, there are things, or there's things you can do, there's steps you can take to help your situation. But ultimately, until we end this, we're stuck in this nightmare perpetually until it's over. And so I wanted to help Debbie specifically on this show, help your your message get through. Anybody out there who can help her, I'm sure will. I know I connected you with Sherry and Ron Palmer. I don't know if you were able to talk with them today or not, but anyways, this is the first show I'm producing for Debbie, and we'll get all the bugs worked out, and hopefully I'll be able to produce more shows for you, Debbie.
Thank you. It's awesome.
Yeah, it's this platform, it's convoluted, but we can see you and hear you at the same time, which it just makes a huge difference when people can see you in real time and then listen to you at a later date through Blog Talk. That's great. So we have the call-in number here, 1-347-855-8301, and then just press 1 if you want to join the show. Otherwise, you're listening to this on the Marches page through Facebook, Twitter, or YouTube. So thanks for giving me this opportunity.
Marchus. Correct?
Yep.
Okay.
So it's all
so
yours.
Catch me up on what was brought up last night, Khulud. And also we have new listeners tonight. So we really do want to set the foundation for what's happening here. I can't hear you though. Not at all. I'm getting nothing here.
All right. Let's see here.
Let's see. Am I okay now, or should I put the phone to my ear?
Yes, you are.
Is that better? Okay.
Yep.
So what's happening is that people are calling in with their own personal agendas to Child Protective Service hotlines and making basically erroneous allegations, and the agency formerly known as Child Protective Services, and now I understand as Child and Family Services, take that and run with it because they're incentivized to get funding for these children that they could potentially take out of the home. In my case, it was a case of landlord retaliation in that I moved to a little exclusive community in Contra Costa County called Moraga. And upon doing an inspection of the home, we had found out that there was deficiencies, that it was not up to standard, and so I raised that issue to the landlords, and we had a housing inspector come in, so it was not even conducted by me. It was conducted by a person certified in the position to do that, and they had found that it was not properly, the electricity was not insulated, and the electricity was not grounded. The apartment was not an apartment. It was actually divided illegally, and it's a big home, and they kind of put a sheetrock through it or made a little wall, and then they did not go through the proper channels to do that. So it was not zoned effectively for it to have the rights of a multi-unit property, a dwelling. And so that was brought up to the landlords, but I did not know at the time that it was illegally zoned. And so this family decided that it would be easier to get me and little Sushi Wushi out less than being exposed for the illegal zoning in Contra Costa. And so that's what they did. They went, but in order to do that, they decided to first try to get a 3-day notice to pay rent or quit. That did not bode well because I obviously had the receipts that I paid well in advance for the dwelling, $7,000 in cash, and so that they couldn't get that, so they decided that let's just bypass that, and they contacted Child Protective Services of Contra Costa County and made a false allegation in an effort to, it's like the highest form of landlord retaliation. The allegation was that Yusuf was on the streets of Moraga crawling unsupervised, which couldn't be farther from the truth. First of all, there are no streets in Moraga. This was on the top of the hill. It was on a closed cuddle sack, and Yusuf is not crawling on the streets. The driveway is it's at least 500 feet, maybe more. I'm not sure. It's a very, very long, it's a 4 or 5 car driveway, and it has a secured iron gate. So I got a call from Child Protective Services, former social worker Suzanne Porter, on November 8th, and she had said that she had received a call in. She was very confused, but that she had a little bit of a vacation that she wanted to tend to, and she wanted to come to my home and check in on me in 2 weeks. I did allow her to do that. She came to the home. And this is all in the article, but she came to the home, and so this is a very upscale neighborhood, and she looked around, and she was from what she had explained, she was very confused about the whole allegation, and said that she didn't see if there was a basis for it. She didn't once check on my child or even communicate or acknowledge Yusuf, which I refer to as Sushi Wushi, not once. It was in my home. We made 2 pots of coffee. She was more concerned with how I am able to live in such a way, and how I've obtained these degrees, and how I had a nanny for my child, and asked me how she could get help in doing that, or how I was so resourceful. But not once did she go and do a tour of the home or check the. She didn't ask me about Yusuf's health. I mean, obviously he's a happy, healthy child, but she was more interested in every other element aside from child welfare. And I had asked her before. She said, "Oh well, I'm going to close this case." I said I take this very seriously. I'm concerned that me and my child are going to be at risk for displacement here. Is there any services that your bureau can provide for us to prevent that as a preventative intervention? And she said, "No, I can't do that. I can't provide any services because that would mean that I have to take your child away. And I'm closing this case, and I have no intention on taking your child away." And I said, "Oh, okay." And I appreciate that and acknowledge that, but you got a phone call in that was something based clearly on landlord retaliation, because she had already expressed that it was the landlord's daughter who had contacted her. And before she met with me inside the home, she had, outside of the dwelling, she had met out with the Fatima Beheshti, who is the landlord's daughter. And she was giving her 2 cents about what was going on. And they had a meeting outside for 10 minutes prior to her even coming in to evaluate the situation. I do have background in, I'm a certified domestic violence advocate, and I'm a California certified victims advocate, and I have taken many parenting classes, and I just feel like if there was a viable threat, it should not have waited 2 weeks to be investigated upon, and then it should not have been perpetuated by someone who's obviously has their own personal agenda. Because when Susie Porter came in, it was very clear that she was not, she told me that this lady is bad news, to stay away from the lady and to leave the dwelling. And I had explained to Susie Porter, I said, Thanksgiving is next week. It's winter time. The holidays are here. She said, it's best that you leave this environment because it's not a healthy environment for you or Yusuf. I said, while I appreciate where you're coming from with that, I have tenant rights, and I have to look after the well-being and welfare of my family, and going out of this home and not having an alternative shelter environment does not seem to be a common sense move in my humble opinion. I don't understand why anybody would recommend that. She said it would make her job easier, and she said she was going to close out the case, and she left, and she asked me for the contact phone number for the father of the child. I explained to her that was my abuser, and I'm a survivor of domestic violence, and he doesn't know where I live, and that I wanted to remain, have a private lifestyle. He has no business coming into my life or really knowing about it. But she said that was protocol. That's what I would have to do, and just to trust her on it. And asked me to hang tight and let me know that, she'd be in touch with me and that there was nothing to worry about. I did say if there was any parenting classes, any therapeutic services, I stressed on tenant right representation, like legal services. She said that she couldn't provide any of those services unless she took the child away. It seemed far-fetched for me to believe that, but of course I did not want my child taken away, and that's where it all started.
And I think that Title 4B is only activated after the child has been removed, and then they can try and offer you some of those services, which, this is not what parents need. They need assistance to keep the child in the home and to get that financial and community support, and that's not the way that the law is designed. So,
and I understand. I think that's very unfortunate. I didn't necessarily need those services, but I just wanted to let her know that I am concerned about her concerns, if they are valid, viable concerns, and that I wanted to make sure that me and Yusuf are protected, and that we can. I believe in prevention over intervention.
I'm only talking about that because I believe that's one of the mythologies that people have about CPS, or what now Department of Youth Services. It's got different names in different states, and it's DSS in Massachusetts and DCF, Department of Children and Families. But the bottom line is that they are an agency that is extrajudicial and has as much power over people's lives, so much power over people's lives. So at that point, she was basically saying that she was going to close the case and that she couldn't get you any services unless she took your child. She had already talked to the landlord's daughter and knew that there were some issues, or there was some potential conflict with the housing situation.
Correct. Not on my part. It was on her part, on their part, of course, for not wanting to make the essential repairs to make the place up to par. And I didn't realize what that involved. That I had to go through, I guess, some zoning issue. Like it was more involved than what I understood at the time. There's a lot of repercussions for them getting, I guess, red flagged for some illegal zoning fraud, because any renovations to a home that's over $1,500, and this is later I found out through my research, would have to go through a certain department. You have to apply for certain permits for that, and so they bypass that, and they're and for getting illegal. So when you bring a tenant in, you're basically not paying taxes, proper California taxes, and so that was their incentive. And so it's the biggest form of landlord retaliation possible. To go after an innocent child who is very beloved, even when Suzanne Porter interviewed the father. So this was the daughter who were interviewed that day, and they asked if that Khulud was a neglectful parent. And it's in the report saying that she's a very loving mother, very attentive to her son, and they sort of said that what their daughter was saying was a facade. So I think that the father and mother, who were very elderly in age, were not keen on the method that their daughter was going about to do this, and so I guess they didn't get an immediate result from Suzanne Porter. Suzanne Porter later, I guess she kept on calling after. This is Fatima Beheshti, the landlord's daughter, who herself is an elderly abuser. She has issues of her own. She's a dentist in Lafayette, and she was their only daughter. She kept on calling into Susie Porter, and Susie Porter reached out to me saying that she thought it was a good idea for me to leave the home, to put Yusuf in the care of his nanny in Lafayette. Would prevent him from being taken, and for me to go take a break to kind of just gather my thoughts. And I said, well, I don't really need to take a break. That I don't need to leave my son, and I don't find it necessary to leave this home. And she said, I'm trying to help you out here, Khulud. I don't want to see you losing your child. Well, I said that this is kind of an unhealthy. I don't need to be a genius to know that a mother and child out on the streets without other secured housing would be also, it's not that great of a trade-off. I have tenant rights. It's the middle of winter. I am a nursing mother. I don't want to leave my home. I'd like to get representation on this, and I don't need to feel persuaded otherwise. The daughter went ahead later, and when she wasn't getting the response, not that much later, it was about a week later, and when she wasn't getting the response that she was desiring from Child Protective Services, which was to displace the child and remove the child, she went to the same judge that she had asked for an unlawful detainer, and his name is Judge Richards from Contra Costa County Superior Court, and she had requested of that judge a immediate move-out order for elderly abuse, stating that her parents felt unsafe by my presence. And I can't tell you that in itself is no farther away from the truth than Yusuf being neglected. They referred to me as their own daughter. I took them to doctor's appointments. I was very helpful. They reached out to me for help. The father was diagnosed with cancer, 4th-stage cancer, prostate cancer, and he didn't even want his daughter to know. So I was taking the father to his visits at Kaiser Permanente. And so that couldn't be farther from the truth, but she had Richards approved the restraining order, and set an immediate move-out order, and that's how she was able to further retaliate. And at that point, Susie Porter contacted me and said that me and Yusuf are homeless. Well, that's not the case, because I have my mother's home that I was staying in Alameda County, and so I'm no longer of their county jurisdiction, and I'm in Alameda County. I've also been a resident of Alameda County for about 32 years now. And I only lived in Contra Costa County for those 2.5 months, I think it was. So from October to December 15th. And it was December 19th when she took out, when they were granted the move-out order, which gave me 24 hours to move out of my home. And from then on, that the whole, it just went. It's a nightmare. It was a nightmare. But even through that, I always had resources. I had financial resources. I had a supportive parent, supportive parents, sisters. So there was never, it was not the most ideal situation for me that I wasn't going to be, the queen of the castle. But I'm much better off than millions of Americans that are homeless and that don't have other resources. So you do. I mean, I have found that the more isolated the mother and children are, and the father as well, if the father's in the situation with them, the more isolated they are from having relatives who are nearby or having financial options, that makes them even more vulnerable to having their children removed and having these games played. I actually know that the Department of Human Services owns apartment buildings. And can you imagine, that they own these buildings and are able to monitor the families who live there so very closely. They know if there's who's coming in and out and if there's drugs on the premises and so on and so on. None of those were pertinent in your story. And your story is unique. As Ted said, it's yet another story, but it is very unique for that one aspect alone, is that, you were connected and you had options. And so this makes it look like a purposeful targeting inspired by somebody who has access to the judge, which would be the landlord's daughter. That's what it looks like to me. This is correct. And the judge that Judge Rebecca Hardy, who ultimately terminated my parental rights on September 28th, is a member of their immediate community. She lives just a few blocks away from the Beheshtis, which I find to be an extreme conflict of interest. And never wants to recuse herself. So you're jumping ahead in the here because on December 19th they ordered you to leave the house. And I want to just say I didn't realize that yesterday was the 1-year anniversary of when this all started. Correct? November 8th. 2 years. 2-year anniversary. Okay. Yes, I haven't thought about it. That is absolutely correct. It is the 2-year anniversary.
And so you've got to get us on target. So was it from November to September before your rights were terminated, which is not even a full year, which I'm just pointing out is unusual as well.
18 months later. It was 18 months later.
So it was
let's
just
stay linear on September. This is all before Yusuf was taken. So what I said before, I just jumped ahead. The September 28th date, that would be 18 months later from the time that he was initially taken. But going back to me and Yusuf being at my mother's house in Alameda County.
So back to December 2015.
Very good. Correct. Back to December of 2015, me and Yusuf went and we lived in Alameda County with my mom. At that point, I was displaced from the dwelling that I was living in Moraga, but I'm with my mother in her home in Hayward, which is, like I said, in the Alameda County jurisdiction. and everything was fine. But I suppose Suzanne Porter decided to reach out and say that she was trying to get a hold of my mom. My mother did speak to Suzanne Porter, and she did tell her that the child is fine. He's in our care. Suzanne Porter insisted to my mom to produce Yusuf in Contra Costa County at the Bureau, at the Child and Family Services Department. And my mother said that she didn't find that necessary. She could send pictures, but that she didn't find it necessary to go to Pleasant Hill, which is about an hour away, to do something that was very unnecessary. They're like, I'm the grandmother.
Right.
I've raised 7 children. I know what I'm doing. I know this child is in good care. And
I mean, she's doing exactly the right thing, because without a court order, you don't have to bring your child in. If there's no court order, and your mother was doing exactly the right response, which anybody would have advised her, the onus needs to be on the department to come find the child and supposedly determine the child is endangered. That's the standard. Yep.
And that's correct. This lady did have a power trip and a personal vendetta. I don't know. She was actually later fired from the Bureau for willful child endangerment to her own children. And she had a restraining order, and it's all in the article, that was taken against her by her husband at the time for spousal abuse. And so she herself was not in a position, in my humble opinion, again, or just in common sense, to be the judge of that of other people's situations. She herself had a lot of things going on in her own life that I think needed to be addressed. But the county knew about this when they hired her. She did come into court. She had contacted, I had an attorney of record for my dissolution. So I was in the process of getting divorced from my husband, and that attorney was contacted by Suzanne Porter because she was blowing up my phone, and I did not find any. I didn't know what else she wanted to talk about. My son is fine. I'm fine. No, I don't want to bring my child into the Bureau or the department. I don't find that to be a healthy environment. I don't agree with a lot of their standard of services, and I refuse to do it. I'm sorry, I don't want to bring my child into a place where you kidnap and steal children. I don't want to do that. She got very upset, and she had sent the police. I was with my son, with my sister and my son. We went out for dinner, and I guess she had sent the sheriff, Alameda County Sheriff's Department, to my mother's home address. Yusuf was not there. My mother answered the door, and she said, Khulud's not here. She went out with her son, and they said, we want to make sure that Khulud is okay, that Khulud and the baby is okay. And they brought it from like a domestic violence standpoint, pretending that they were concerned about us from my abuser, which is the one that they had contacted and informed where the location of where we were. But that also couldn't be farther from the truth. And so she got upset that her efforts were not vindicated with this prize child. And she contacted my attorney, who did not have, his name is Alex Verbeck, and that was my former attorney, and he was not really educated on juvenile dependency. He more in family court, that he was a new attorney from Oregon, and he said, that they had sent over a meeting letter to take the child to court, to go to court in Contra Costa County, and that I had nothing to worry about, that she assured him that there was nothing to worry about, that they just needed to check on the child. And, if we can take back time, I went in there with Yusuf. All my family were there. So I had my 4 sisters, my mother, my spiritual guru was there. The father of the child was there, and he took that up.
I lost you.
I tried to serve. Are you there?
Could you just repeat what you said about the father of the child? I lost you on that.
The father of the child was there. I hadn't seen him in a very long time, and he took that opportunity to serve me with a protective order for him. That I guess they help. I don't understand. He got a default order because I was not in the house in Moraga, and he sought that as an opportunity to use against me, and so that restraining order was used as a basis for having Yusuf take it away. And in courts it doesn't look good. That order has since been reversed because it was not taken. It was not done through the proper channels, and he later said that he took the 5th in court. There was a trial hearing for it, and that he basically said that he lied, and that was reversed. And but at the time, it's all based on hearsay. It doesn't really matter. We went into the courtroom,
but they used it. So there's all this maneuvering going on here. Get the father on their team. Get him. So you hadn't seen him because he didn't have contact with his child.
No, he walked out on his child on Christmas Eve when Yusuf was 4 months old.
And that was
on December 24th of 2014.
Okay, so that was the year before. So Yusuf was
Correct.
A year old at the time that you were moving into this. You were trying to move into this Contra Costa apartment unit.
He was 15 months old, and his father had been out of his life for about a year. Off the radar for about a year. And the father himself, we had learned that he was engaging in illegal activity, which was what brought conflict into the marriage. I did not know about this. He introduced himself as being a well-established photographer, and little did I know of he had a lot of illegal activities that he was engaged in, and I didn't want Yusuf to be a part of that, so it caused mayhem in the relationship. And then I asked him to remove himself from our environment because it was not healthy for the child. And he did. He, instead of just getting a home, he took it to the extreme, and it was just he went off the radar for a year. He was basically, he's a high-end cocaine distributor, and when I learned about that, that's when I gave him the ultimatum. I gave him the ultimatum that he had to remove himself from that lifestyle, or else not be a part of our lives, and he chose that. And he was
so you're in the middle of a divorce as well. You've
Yes.
got this CPS case, which is not really a case. I mean, there was no. I mean, she didn't write a report about the condition of the home, and she didn't even come out Alameda County to see the child, right? She kept wanting you to go to Contra.
She did, and I did not want to do. I did not feel comfortable with that, and I know that it's my right to not do that. I don't need to produce. This is not a third world country. I don't need to just produce my child without a court order in another jurisdiction.
So you thought. So then what happened
in
when
court?
your mother, when Alameda County sent the sheriff's department to your mother's home. What happened next?
We weren't there, and Susie Porter took that personally, and she became infuriated and then contacted my attorney because, again, like I said, she was blowing up my phone, just blowing up my phone. And I sent her a text, and I have this documented that, here's my attorney, contact him, and please leave me alone. Like, this is causing me, unnecessary stress. I'm a nursing mom, and everything is well, but you're not taking that for, for its truth value. So, like I said, my attorney was contacted, and he told me to bring Yusuf into court on January 21st of 2016. And again, if I can turn back time, I would, but I took Yusuf in because I didn't know if this was criminal court. I didn't want any legal adversities, but I was assured by my attorney, who was assured by Suzanne Porter, that it was not, that was not going to be the case.
And I missed which court were you bringing him in?
Into Contra Costa County. Contra Costa County Superior Court, Department 25, with just what Judge Lois Haight.
And your divorce attorney advised you to do that?
Yeah, she had contacted my divorce attorney, and he told me that I needed to go in, and I got lured in. I got suckered into doing that, and when I got there, Judge Lois Haight asked why Yusuf was there at a detention hearing, because apparently I just learned that day that it was a detention hearing. I did not know that it was a detention hearing. I thought we were going there for a meeting.
Okay, and so I'm not familiar with the term detention hearing, and that's not a Colorado term. What does that mean?
A detention hearing is a hearing that is made in the courts by Superior Court judges usually, and it is facilitated by Child and Family Services. It's a subdivision of the court called Juvenile Dependency Court, but it's taking place at the Superior Court, often by Superior Court judges, and it's a hearing that takes place after a child is removed from a family, after a child has already been removed from the family. And that was not the case for me. It was not the case for me because I walked in with Yusuf. I was told that we were going to have a meeting. And it was at that meeting that I was told it was a detention hearing, but Suzanne Porter hadn't showed up until 3 hours later. So there was an attorney for the child, and his name was Lombardo, Salvador Lombardo. And
was that a G-A-L?
Salvador Lombardo, Lambardo.
Right, and was he called a guardian ad litem in California? A guardian ad litem?
They called him the child attorney. I guess a guardian ad litem for the child. He was the child attorney.
Right, it's the same thing then, which is not a good sign, right? So they had already appointed. They had already appointed an attorney, and you knew nothing about the case. You were getting no notifications of anything that there were hearings.
Nothing whatsoever. I was told that we were coming in for a meeting. When I got there, they said it was a court hearing, and that court hearing was in front of Judge Lois Haight in Department 25. There was an attorney for the Bureau. The name is not coming up right now, but they had requested to the judge, that the judge make an order for the child not to be removed from the courtroom until the social worker, who was Suzanne Porter at the time, showed up, and that she was running late. So everybody was, I knew that was not a good sign, but the judge had ordered it. And so I did keep Yusuf there. We all stayed in the courtroom because I don't know, because I thought I was doing what I needed to do to be a law-abiding citizen. Suzanne Porter does.
I wonder
show
what
up.
would have happened if you had left with him.
I don't know. I don't know. I would have. Maybe I would have had him today, or maybe they would have done an Amber Alert. I don't know.
I'm just curious, because you don't know about, if you haven't been notified of a court decision, I know that they will say that it's binding on you, but I don't think that it ultimately would turn out to be that. I mean, they may have arrested you, which would have been a disaster too, because they would have gotten what they wanted anyway. So I'm just curious if anybody had asked that question, if you'd thought about it. But I don't like where this, honey, I don't like where this story is going. So what happened when Suzanne Porter showed up?
Showed up with a very elaborate police report about about me having been. So you remember I mentioned that they had done a move-out order? Well, that move-out order was not made clear to me. I thought it was just, I really thought it was a restraining order to keep me 100 feet from the landlord. That was not served upon me the proper way. It was not explained to me, because that attorney who was representing me for that hearing was actually not there. And I was not familiar with what the expectation was, that it was a move-out order and it wasn't properly served on me, not by the court or by the family. So they had, Yusuf was with his nanny in Lafayette, and they had come and arrested me for being in the home. I was, at 5 o'clock in the morning, I was sleeping in my home. They had broken into the home, arrested me, so she brought that in and furnished
so this
that
was in December?
Yes.
So when we moved forward from December 19th, that happened like immediately after that? You were still there?
Correct.
You didn't move out? Okay, I get it.
Correct. I did not realize that it was a move-out order. I really genuinely thought it was a restraining order to stay 100 feet away. There was just so much going on at the time, and I was arrested, and she came in with that.
Were you charged with something?
A violation of a court order.
And were you adjudicated on that between December and when you showed up at the detention hearing?
I was never convicted. I was never convicted for that crime.
I
actually have no convictions. I have no convictions of any crime on my record, other than I did get a DUI in 2010, and that's
another story. We don't need to go there. People have problems in their lives, right? So let's just. So basically, what you're telling me here is that
Yusuf removed. She had a report insisting that Yusuf was not safe in the home, not safe with me, and that he needed to be removed from my custody because he was at risk for neglect, and that I was a flight risk. And when she arrived, she went into the courtroom. She stayed in that courtroom for 45 minutes and had a private meeting with the judge for 45 minutes. The judge what do you call it when you bring the people back into the courtroom?
Convened.
Yes, reconvened. I walked into the courtroom and I was nursing Yusuf on my bosom at that time. He was getting a feeding. Little Yusuf was nursing, and it was 2 minutes in to the hearing that she had stated that she found.
I lost you. You need to say that again, please.
We reconvened. Yusuf was nursing on my breast when we walked in, so he was nursing. I went into the courtroom with him, and the judge said that we have mother here, we have the bureau, we have the attorney for the child. She said she was able to look over the report, and she found it to be substantiated, and that Yusuf needed to be detained. And at that time, Suzanne Porter came in and took him off my breast. And from that day, he has been out of my custody.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. So they took him. I asked if I could. My mother stood up in the courtroom, and she was, she had said that I'm grandma. I'm here. I can take care of this child. I have a home. And Judge Hayes said that she did that before. She had given a child to a grandmother. She had made the mistake of doing that in the past, but that grandmother turned out to have the biggest meth lab, and that she no longer does that anymore. And so,
without even exploring, so this whole thing,
did not, no.
They could have been preparing. They could have been planning. Well, they don't do it. They don't operate this way where, like, we're going to remove the child, so we're going to let you know, and we can look at some other options for kinship placement. But they always have to process the child. They always have to take the child away from the family for several days, at the very least, like 4 or 5 days at the least, so that they can, if they are going to put a kinship placement in, they always remove them for some period of time.
That's what they did. And he said that there was a meth lab in one of the previous cases. I don't know what that had to do anything with my mother, who is a devout Muslim.
Unbelievable.
My sister, and that the law didn't apply in her courtroom, and that if anybody wanted to have custody or kinship care over Yusuf, that they would have to apply and go through background screenings with the department. My sister got up, my big sister, she lives in Fremont, Theta. She said, I'm Yusuf's maternal aunt. I have a good home. I'd love my nephew to be a part of my home. I don't think that he should be displaced. She was shut down. Lubna, my name is Lubna Salah. I live in Beverly Hills. I'm the maternal aunt. I would like to have Yusuf. She was shut down. Maysoon Salah. I'm Maysoon Salah. I'm the maternal aunt. I live in Solana Beach, California. I would like to provide a home for Yusuf. She was shut down. My name is Meha Salah. I'm the maternal aunt. I live in Carlsbad, California. 4 sisters. Uh-huh. Everyone. And Yusuf was ripped away, cried, just abruptly taken from his feeding. And it was the worst day of my life.
I'm sure it was, and I can't even imagine. I can't even imagine that they had that you didn't even have a fighting chance in that courtroom. Did you even have an attorney with you?
I had my dissolution attorney, who was not versed in juvenile dependency. There are different juvenile dependency laws.
Right, but he was not versed. Was he present with you?
Prepped. He was present with me, but he was not the proper attorney for that type of law. I don't think he had.
Do you think he knew what was happening? Do you think he knew what was going to happen?
He never. If he did, he told me otherwise. He told me that wasn't going to happen. That I had nothing to worry about. That we would have time to express that Yusuf was in the proper care and to provide evidence of that.
I have never heard of a you come to our county and you bring your child. I mean, did they tell you to bring the child with you?
Yes. I should have not done that. I just this is absolutely unbelievable. And did they were based on this police report from 3 months earlier with no criminal history. They just decided that the child was endangered, is what they did. Yes, and Yusuf has, I can substantiate that Yusuf is a healthy, loved, medically cared for child. He has, it couldn't be farther from the truth. I'm telling you, Yusuf is loved and beloved ever since the day he came out of me, since before then. This is child trafficking. It's the worst heinous crime that can happen to any family, any loving family. And I understand that there are broken families. There are parents that are not good parents, but that needs to be proven. That cannot be based on an assumption or a lie for somebody who has a self, their own personal agenda.
I mean, this is shocking to hear, and I can imagine that it must have been just devastating. And have you seen your son since?
I have. I was allowed to see Yusuf once a week at the Bureau for supervised visitations. They were in really like little the dirty rooms that were over cluttered with broken toys. They were not age appropriate. You're with somebody in the room who's constantly typing on their iPad or something, notes about everything that you do. It was not the most nurturing environment, and I tried to make it as nurturing and loving as possible. I did record every visitation with Yusuf. I videotaped everyone because they were fabricating these lies against me, saying that I was force breastfeeding Yusuf when he didn't want to be nursed. And the videos of the visit, you could see Yusuf like standing up, pulling out my breast, and just like very eager to get at it. And they made an order saying I couldn't breastfeed Yusuf. That it was not conventional. He was over 18 months at the time. And they said, I mean, that's a decision that a mother and sometimes both parents make to continue that bonding and nurturing and nourishing experience. But they have taken your right to make that decision away from you. They probably couldn't believe you were still even considering providing the option for Yusuf, because I would say very few mothers are going to go a week in between and still be able to produce milk. I mean, I did. I produced milk up to 15 months after Yusuf was detained. I kept on my maternal, my internal robot. I kept on producing for Yusuf, which told me that he needed me that much more. That's why it was just, the whole separation is just, it's your body responding to the grief and to, this sense of need. Your body is taken over. I nursed my children, and I know that when I was worried about them, I would be more likely to be able to produce milk. I mean, it's just it's a natural response to a stressful situation. And in that detention hearing after they took Yusuf off again, away from his feeding, off my bosom, I had expressed that Yusuf is exclusively a breastfed child, that he eats food, he eats solids, but he only breastfeeds. It's not there's no cow's milk for him, and I wanted to continue to supply him with my breast milk. They had said, the judge, Lois Hayes, said, I can't imagine that the mother would have anything left, but she can produce milk. She can produce that to the Bureau. But it was just a huge, one of the most unnatural responses anybody could ever wish from a judge. There's just such a, so much corruption. I can't even begin to, there's no nurture. It's like they're mainstreamed like through this assembly line, like as if. Well, what I say is that they have no respect for motherhood. I don't think they have an ounce
more respect for fatherhood. I think that they, I mean, if you read the book Brave New World, or if you read 1984, people aren't allowed to reproduce on their own anymore. Their reproduction is run by the government. I mean, that's what is turning out, is that when children are owned as a means of production of the state, the parent is nothing but a factory. And both of those books talk about, love is outlawed in the book 1984, but in Brave New World, they literally have levels of people, castes of people, and the ones who are the breeding people they're just nothing but breeding people. They're not considered as having a relationship with their children. So I mean, we're approaching that. That's my point, is that our courts in the United States of America, and there are other countries as well. I know that Great Britain and Ireland and in India and these countries are under the British Crown, and they are also being infiltrated. Are you having trouble with your phone? Yeah. I think it's hard holding it up. Yeah. So I'm going to let you go ahead. I just wanted to stop you at that point and say that I can't imagine, and I know a lot of my listeners have been through similar experiences, the most heart-wrenching experience, and it's prolonged grieving. It's not just, it's not simply your child is sick or your child has been in an accident and you've been artificially removed from your child. It's not nature or illness or accident that has happened. It's a human-made force that has breached its responsibility to believe this is happening in the United States of America. I think that whole sense of betrayal and shock are absolutely part of the story, as well as the actual physical response that you had. So you are a very good spokesperson for what you have been through and what other people have experienced as well. So my heart goes out to you, dear.
Thank you. It's just shy of having to impose sterilization on people. Later
now
on,
I can't.
When it was, well, oh, sorry about that. It's just shy of having to sterilize people. Government sterilization, and I don't know how they do it in China, but it's the essence of it is wrong. But I wanted to fast forward to the jurisdiction disposition hearings. And that's when you have an opportunity to excuse me, that's when you have an opportunity to refute the allegations. I was not allowed, by due process rights, I was not allowed to refute the allegations for Yusuf.
And how much after the detention hearing did that occur?
It's supposed to occur within 3 days, but mine occurred within over a month later. And it's I didn't agree with the allegations. My attorney was unwilling to see at that point. I could not afford my private attorney anymore, and they did a court-appointed attorney to me, and that court-appointed attorney said that she was unwilling to fight these allegations on my behalf. And when I was in front of the judge, this is Judge John Leitner at the time, he insisted that, because I tried to inform him that I did not agree, he shunned my communication and asked me to only communicate through my attorney, but I had expressed that my attorney was not diligently fighting for what I believe to be my position on the case. The judge said, my attorney had requested what they call a Marson hearing. I believe it's called a Marson hearing, where they try to put a guardian ad litem for me that I did not understand, that I did not have the knowledge or know-how or ability to communicate legally on my own behalf.
Let's bring in another attorney here, okay? Let's just bring in more attorneys to this removal of this child from his loving and fit parent. Did you dodge that bullet, or did they give you a GAL for yourself as well?
They gave me an ultimatum that I had to, in order to ever see my son again, I had to sign these papers saying that I put Yusuf in, that I had mental health issues, and that I put Yusuf in with the nanny, who was not a good caregiver, who was not an adequate caregiver. And I told him that I did not agree with these allegations. He told me, I'm going to give you a 30-minute break to go consider your options, because when you come back, they went off the record. If I did not agree to that, I wouldn't be in a position to agree or disagree on anything on my own behalf. And my attorney had said to me that I would never see my child again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
She made that as clear as day to me. And we have, I don't know if we can bring Rita in. She's a parent advocate, but she's very familiar with my story. I think I just need to take a little break, because I am in a sensitive place. I don't know if anybody can come in and communicate a little bit, or if I can partner David on.
So can you tell me, did you say her name is Rita?
Rita.
And the first, what is her phone? The first three. I have a caller from the 541 area code with her or her hand raised. Would that be Rita?
That would possibly be Charlene. Is that Charlene?
I don't know. I'll bring them in.
Please.
Hello, 541. You're live at the 4th branch.
Hey, how you doing? This is Ed Johnston again, New Oregon Trackers. Can you hear me? Yeah, this is Ed Johnston. And what is interesting, we've talked before. I've been on your show before. I've been on all the shows with Thomas and Lisa and everybody.
Okay.
But what this lady's going through is that they're running her around because she has no concept, and she thinks she's going into these courts that she thinks that these people care for her. Not one of them give a damn about her or that child. That child is a moneymaker off of Social Security funding. That's all they care about, is how much money. And I'm posting some of this stuff up on your wall and stuff. And like I said, she get a hold of me. She needs to put the story together and write the criminal charges on these people that did what they did to her. Because when you have an attorney, you give up your rights. They had her sign that child away, and they threatened her if they didn't, because they're making $30,000 a month off that child.
Yes.
Yes, and I know all this stuff. And
the figure that we were getting was from Daniel Hatcher at $14,000 a month. But where are you getting the $30,000? And that's coming out of what, Title 4E, correct?
Yes, this is not only that, it's coming out of that, but it's coming out of this California state funding that they get matched on it. Okay, they have matching funds, so whatever the Fed is spending, the state is matching that through the taxes. That is illegal to do anyways, because taxes are voluntary. And we've already proven that beyond a shadow of a doubt. We've got the Supreme Court cases and everything, but all taxes are voluntary. But when they gave her child away, what they did to her is that they put her in a corner because she didn't have the knowledge or the education to even know anything about what they were doing. She didn't have no knowledge of what the legal system, legal is British government. It's not American at all. The Constitution is law. They ran her through statute codes and administrative rules of the state. And Jerry Brown should be in prison anyways. And we're working on that one.
Yeah, we know the governors know what in all of our states, every governor. In fact, what I remind people is that these administrative courts are under the governor's branch of government.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody thinks it's the judicial branch because you're going into the courtrooms. These are administrative courts,
Right.
and they're under the governor's jurisdiction.
Right, and you know that I am recalling and I'm indicting the governor of Oregon, Kate Brown. And I'm working with people in California to indict Jerry Brown. And this is the point where they've been making financial interest off of us. And I've known Jerry. I knew Jerry back in the 70s, personally. Kate Brown, Pelosi, and all those idiots. I grew up with them in politics. But people don't have a concept when they're going into these courts. They think that the attorneys work for them. When you have an attorney representing you, you give up your constitutional rights, and you are considered a dead man or woman there. And if you use the word person, you are automatically gave up your rights. Go ahead.
Can anybody hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes.
So I had asked for my I had asked to represent myself, and they said that I could not represent myself.
Did you
I had
put
asked
it
to represent
in
myself.
writing?
Did she what?
I put it in writing. Yes, I did.
Okay.
I did,
Did you have it? Did you? How did you have it served? Did you have it served and filed and recorded record?
Yes, I did. It is in the record. Substitution of attorney from Pamela Galliani to Khulud Salah. So I made myself in pro per, but the judge said that I did not have the knowledge or know how to do that. I said I would familiarize myself with it because I didn't think that there was anybody more in a better position to represent my case than myself.
And by law, she
it.
can't do that by her own administrative rules. She cannot do that. And I actually have the laws that says that she can actually go to prison for that.
I have that 3 times on record that I requested that, and that they threatened at that point to put the attorney. So they did a Marston hearing, which is a confidential hearing, and then the judge said that they threatened to put a guardian ad litem to represent me. So that was their way. That was their way of trying to get me down from asking about that, because they wanted these attorneys who are incentivized by the Title IV funding.
Right, but you know who the guardian ad litem works for, don't you?
It works for the county.
Right, they work for the courts. They're not attorneys,
Yes.
And if they are attorneys, it's a fraud because a guardian ad litem is not supposed to be an attorney. Allegedly, it's supposed to be a funded CPS worker, is technically what they are.
Yes, but I don't need an attorney. I don't need a guardian ad litem. I'm able to communicate very well on my own behalf.
Yes, you have my information, don't you?
No, I would very much like it. I don't know if you can put it in the comment section or reach out to me.
I don't like putting my phone. Well, I'll give you my phone number. It's out there anyways.
Go ahead, Ted.
I'll give you my phone number, and I put some stuff in the comment deals, too, of my website, and the stuff on CPS. I have them on my websites, too. And I'll give you much help, but you need to put a lot of this stuff in writing. I'll walk you through some of the process.
I have your number, Ed. You don't have to say it online. You don't have to say it on air. I have your number, and I can get that to Khulud.
Okay, good. Because what I'll do is I'll walk you through this. Because right now, what I'm getting ready as I'm finishing up, have you ever heard of something called the 1938 Foreign Agent Registration Act?
No.
1938 Foreign Agent Legislation Act?
Registration Act.
Foreign Registration Act.
Yeah.
Look it up.
Well, you heard that, what was that, former FBI Comey? The only reason they could fire him because they were trying to get him out of office because he never registered. And he said he's an attorney. He didn't need to register at the Senate hearings. And that's why he was fired, because he didn't register.
Uh-huh.
It's a federal crime. It's called federal prison if you don't register.
I see.
And that's where people don't comprehend how it works. And I think hopefully you still have my email. If you got my email, I'll get that. But you know I'm on Facebook, Edward Johnston, with a white teddy bear and red rose. And I'll get you the application that I'm writing right now, the indictments I'm doing for about 30 people right now for the Foreign Registration Act on their cases.
Okay, I very much appreciate that. Do we have Michelle on the line, Debbie?
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
What's the question?
Well, you said you had Michelle on the line.
You know I'm American born. Does that have anything to do with me?
Wait a minute. What country are you from?
America. I'm born in Chicago, raised in the Bay.
Okay. How many generations does your family go back on this soil?
I'm first generation American.
Okay. No, you're first generation immigrants. And Americans are 5 or more generations by federal law and by the act of...
I see.
Oh, no, I've got all this. I wrote it for Congress. That's why Judge Scalia was murdered, because he was going to be indicting Obama. We're the ones who wrote the court case for him, for Judge Roberts.
I did not know about this, but yes, I do find it, if it's helpful for my case, I would really like to.
Right.
So my biggest thing is bringing Yusuf back. I do want to stress that the case plans that they made for me, I did everything on these case plans. I did everything.
But they knew that you were for her because they can make money off of the child's birth certificate registration number, because they killed the birth certificate. They reissued him another birth certificate. They've probably done it twice already, so they've already got about $2 billion off that insurance bond, because you know birth certificates are insurance bonds, don't you?
Yes. So I know that it's insurance bond for people to get funding for the child on behalf of the child, and so.
Technically, that's how they're using it illegally.
I see.
Wow.
So, how do we how to bring Yusuf back?
We
have an appeals court attorney who's fighting to get this in the Court of Appeals, get their decision overturned. But I think that there's power in numbers, and I think we need to bring awareness regarding this case, because the unfortunate truth is that, unfortunate truth is that Yusuf doesn't belong where he is right now. He should not be pawned off to the highest bidder.
Well, I don't know what your attorney standard is, but ask him, he or she, if he will actually file an indictment on child trafficking. You'll get your answer right away. An indictment on
child trafficking.
Yeah, you'll get your answer right away, because most attorneys will not go against the judge because they make money off each other. Because every time a child is taken, that caseworker got $7,500 in cash for stealing that child. The judge got $125,000 put in his or her retirement fund for every time they steal a child.
And so that's not good.
This is how they really make money. People don't get it. This was done by William Jefferson Clinton, passed the Children's Act that Hillary Clinton and Bill both wrote. That was the Child Protection Bill in 1996 that gave the funding to steal children on the black market. And that's where you're watching with Corey Feldman and all these people finally coming out with the child trafficking and the rapes and the murders coming up. This is what all that was so deep and what it caused. And people don't know it unless you've been there or you've seen it. And I've lived in the field of that type of industry myself, so I've seen a lot of things that people wouldn't see. And plus, I've been in politics for 40 years of my life. So I've been behind the scenes. I've been with senators and congressmen writing this stuff up, defending it, and trying to get people to stand up, because everybody wants to, no offense to the people who believe in their Christianity or the Bible, but everybody wants to talk about Christian and pray to God. But God ain't going to do a damn thing unless the people get up and know the Constitution, know their rights, and stand for the rights, because the Bible ain't going to give you rights. It doesn't give you rights. The Constitution gives you rights. If that makes sense.
Right. Yes.
It does.
It does make sense. And, you know, I really appreciate you calling in, Edward. And Khulud has a way to get back and to get in touch with you. She's got, you know, as she's saying, she's got her cases being considered for a Court of Appeals, or it's in the Court of Appeals.
She needs to write some of that up. Is she on Facebook by any chance?
Yes.
Yes.
Operation Save Wushi, or it's under.
All right, go to. I want to give the host back her show and get back to your time. But go to my Facebook site is Edward Johnston, and when you click on it, you'll find a white teddy bear with a red rose.
Oh, yes, I have seen it. Okay, I will.
That's me. Believe me, they've been trying to take me out. The Democratic Party literally has been trying to take me out for 20 years, and it's been proven on record and the newspapers and stuff. Because if we don't protect our Constitution, because we're not a democracy, we're a republic form of government, and that even says in Article 1, Section 10 of the Constitution, we're a republic, not a democracy.
Right.
So, anyhow, I'll give the show back to the host and give me, and I'll give you some information on your wall tonight for reading education.
Thank you.
Thank you for calling, Edward.
Thank you. You know me. I always speak up sometime.
There you go. We appreciate it. We appreciate it. And I just want to remind people that the call-in number is 347-855-8301, and press 1 if you want to speak. I do have Michelle here.
Oh, can I add one more thing to this real quick before I mute myself?
Okay, I'm going to mute you anyway. Go ahead.
Okay, yeah, I got my talk show and Oregon Trackers and on Facebook set up that we do every week. Now I'm doing it twice a week, Sunday and Monday, on things like this. Anyhow, may the great Spirit bless you all.
Thank you, Edward. Things like this.
Thank you.
We have Michelle. She's the president of Parents Against CPS Corruption. It's a nonprofit organization based out of San Francisco.
That's what Edward said?
Oh,
right. I was. Well, we'll be able to I've got his number for you and everything. So I have Michelle.
Thank you.
Michelle, you're live at the 4th branch. Oh, hang on. Now I do. There we go.
Okay.
Hi, Michelle.
Hi, Debbie. I want to thank you for having Collude on your show tonight and for covering these issues in general. It's so important to raise awareness, and you do such a good job really just trying to, working to educate the public and to bring people together. And, Collude, I'm just so, we're all just so happy to have her as a participant in this movement, because a lot of people that have been through what she's been through don't have the same resilience that she does at this point where she is. It's incredible that she's able to just get up and fight the way she does. It's a lot of people. I mean, it's at that point. What happens is that people just fall to pieces, and that's what they want. That's what our oppressors want. And Collude, thank you for your strength.
Thank you, Michelle, for all your support. Michelle has been an excellent source of support and strength for me. She's the one who wrote the article, and she's worked very hard and diligently to get the word out there. She's put on strikes, organized strikes in San Francisco and in Contra Costa County. She's the president of Parents Against CPS Corruption, and we need people like Michelle. We need groups like Michelle to get together and to join forces, and that's the only way we're going to get the proper legislative reform that we need to make the change for the future of our society and our children. And so I commend you, Michelle, and all others like you, Debbie, Francesca, Carmel Foster, Rita. There's been so much support. Michelle Chan is just such a blessing to have. She is fierce. She doesn't sleep. She's Shira. She's the Princess of Power, and I am very, very grateful to have met her.
Well, that's beautiful testimony that you just gave, Michelle. And I just want to say how fortunate you are, because up to maybe 5 years ago, I think people were going through this and they were completely on their own. They didn't have, we've got good thinkers here. We've got these kinds of podcasts and connections and the internet access to people who are fighting this. One of the things I've discovered is, if you foray into fighting for your case, you have a better grasp of your case than anybody else, anybody who's representing you, and you can't trust the attorneys. You don't know where their loyalties lie. And it's pretty commonly understood that they pledge that bar licenses to the court. It's to the Bar Association. Yeah. it's not to the clients, and people don't necessarily understand that at all.
Yeah. For me, the lack of a proper representation is one of the issues going on in this industry that bothers me the most. It's one thing that people's rights are being violated, that the best interests of children are not being actually advocated for, but the fact that parents don't have a chance from the first day, and also having an attorney appointed to a person that is working against them, and there's nothing that there's not all of these. There are some attorneys out there that actually are fighting for their clients, but there's a lot of the court-appointed counsel really they're really working against their clients, and it does something to a person's brain. It can make a person go. It makes a lot of the clients go a little crazy because they realize that something is off, something's going on, and they can't put their fingers on it. And it's one of the issues that I think I'm having the most trouble figuring out what the remedies are to it, because in a sense it is sort of hard to prove. It's hard to go after. It's hard to bring the malpractice suits. I only know one attorney that is planning on, that's really going after attorneys right now in the dependency court. But there's already so few attorneys that are practicing in civil litigation and CPS, and now when you're looking at malpractice suits against CPS attorneys, it's such a specialized area of law. And it's also an area of law that's extremely difficult to bring pro se, because you have to do a trial within a trial, and it's the credibility. I mean, by default, the attorneys, on the face have more credibility than many of the clients. And so I'm hoping that if anyone has any solutions or any ideas, that they can contact our organization. I'd love to open up the discussion surrounding this issue.
Well, I certainly hope that some of my callers, can you just repeat, or let me see if I have it, Parents Against CPS Corruption. Is that a website or is it a Facebook page? Both?
Our website is parentsagainstcpscorruption.com. We also have a Facebook group. It's also Parents Against CPS Corruption. The best way to contact us is definitely through our website, parentsagainstcpscorruption.com, and it'll bring you to it'll bring you to our email.
Okay. All right. I know that Khulud was expecting some other callers as well, and I'm trying to get back to that screen there. Let's see. I do have Khulud, who was the lady that we had the first one?
Charlene.
Charlene? Dude, her hand is still raised. Let's give her a chance to speak in. Michelle, I'm going to leave you on. So if you have something to add, go ahead.
Thank you.
Hi, Charlene. You're live at the Fourth Branch. Hello, 570?
That's me, Judy Laura Fisher. I'm not Charlene.
Oh, Judy. Hi, Judy. You have your hand raised.
I do.
This is Judy Laura Fisher. She was on my show last week. And Judy is well known to many people if they've ever watched the movie Kids for Cash. This is the story of the three juvenile detention centers in Pennsylvania, with the one being owned by two of the judges and their builder, and the judges are now in jail. So, Judy, did you have something to comment on?
Yes, I actually have a radio show called Custody for Cash, and it has to do with everything that you're talking about on the show tonight. And I think this is great that we're people from all over the states in the United States are getting together and talking about their children being kidnapped into the systems. And it goes through all the states, and basically it has to do with Ed said. It has to do with Title IV-E funding. And that Title IV-E funding is what has everybody in the children and youth system stealing our children, kidnapping our children, and keeping them in the system. And he is correct on that. I did a big show on that, And that's why we're reaching out to each other. But the big part here is wonderful, is the fact that we're all getting together through talk shows like yours and like mine and the internet.
Yeah.
So we're getting big, powerful people, which is the parents. The parents are the big, powerful people, and they're gathering together by the thousands in each state. And that's what we need to do.
I still want to have, I want to get organized and have a specific day where at 12 o'clock in one of our area codes, everybody, whatever area code you're in, it's 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, and people just go and they stand on the nearest street corner with signs and say, my child, or the government has tried to take my child, the government has abused my rights and my child's rights. Somehow we bring attention to not just Child Protective Services, but also what's happening in the juvenile courts, the juvenile detentions, where what happened to America? What happened to a kid makes a mistake, a kid makes a bad judgment, we treat the child like a 16-year-old child. His brain is not fully developed for 9 more years. Why are we criminalizing kids at 13, at 14? Why are we not supporting families? And if we put together a day, and I don't know what day it would be, and I don't know how to get this off the ground, but we need to have the rest of the world recognize how big this problem is. We're talking.
So we need to go march in our state capital. We need to go march in our respected state capital. All of us
but
need to go to.
For most people, that's the problem. It's too difficult for people to travel there. I'm talking at noon next Saturday. We all stand on a street corner for a half an hour with a sign that says CPS is corrupt, family court is corrupt, juvenile court is corrupt, probate court steals elderly, whatever our signs are. And we just stand there once a month for a half an hour across this country in every city, in every town. When I stand in front of the state capitol with the banner at my rallies, people walk up to me and say, that happened to me. I haven't seen my children for 10 years. That happened to me. The court told me I could never contact my child again as long as we're alive. That's the kind of stories that I hear.
3,000 stories. 3,000 stories in 4 years of exactly the same thing. False accusations. They came into my
one
child
county.
out of my arms.
In Luzerne County, just the adolescents, not even the babies, not even the foster care kids. We have to let America know the extensiveness of this problem. It's time that we're no longer ashamed. They want us to be ashamed. They want us to hide. They want parents to go away. They want parents to die.
Yeah.
I wanted to add this to make you understand a little bit more. In every state, I've heard so many stories of your exact story. They give the child to the bad parent. Do you know why they do that? They give the child
go crazy.
Well, that's
one reason, especially in cases of sexual abuse.
So what they do is they give the child to the bad parent, knowing that bad parent is going to screw up. And they start making the good parent and taking them apart by giving them false diagnoses, things that they say that's wrong with them. So they're eliminating really both parents, so then they could put the child and keep the child in the system, and then put them on the state adoption website. I don't know if you know about every state has a state adoption website where you could go on the website in your state and pick what child you want. You want a child with blonde hair, blue eyes, black hair, 7 years old, 8 years old. That's what we're talking about. This is how bad it's gotten. And what's happening is they're eliminating them.
I had that website posted when you were on the show 2 weeks ago. Could you repeat that website? And you had the Pennsylvania one. Go ahead and tell us what that website was.
It's Pennsylvania Permanency Network, and you could bring it up right now, and you could pick any child you want, what color eyes the child is, what color hair the child is. Yes, and you could do it in your state. You just got to find out what it is. I had a.
It's a government website. It's not just like it's not like a private
website. Our children are for sale. Anybody, you don't even have to go through any kind of security to get to look at the children and their videos and pick what child you want.
And what Judy was telling me was that they tell you what the children like,
and it has to stop. And we need to stand together, and we need to educate everybody about Title IV funding and how they're taking it and they're kidnapping our children to put them in the system, to put them up on that adoption agency where they're going to make a lot of money. Now, in New Mexico, it's called the Heart Gallery. It's called the Heart Gallery, and I had a mother call me from New Mexico all the way to Pennsylvania and tell me that she went to get blood work at the hospital, and on the television was her own child as the poster child for the adoption agency. She cried. She called me and said, I went to get blood work, and my child is up on the TV for sale.
Oh, my
God. Gallery in New Mexico. It's the Pennsylvania Permanency Network here in Pennsylvania where they have our children on the website for sale.
I did not know what it was in California, but I was told I knew of it. I don't know. I haven't been able to access it. I didn't know what it was, but I was told that Yusuf was on it 4 months prior to even having been a candidate in the court's eye for adoption. So they were putting my son out on the market to be prospectively sold.
Now here I am in Pennsylvania, and you're in California, and I'm telling you that this is happening in every state. And until we get together, all of us people together in each and every state, and we stand up against this and we bring awareness to this, it's not going to stop. Us parents,
you know what I think has happened?
Control.
I'm going to ask you. I'm going to say what I think, and then I'm going to ask you. I think that there are people out there who see a child, and they believe that the parent is not in a stable situation, and they literally engineer a removal for that very particular child. And so I'm wondering, where is Yusuf's? What is his situation right now, Khulud?
They've not told me where Yusuf is. They have left it up to the prospective adopted parents who have him in their custody right now to be the ones that allow or disallow any future communications with me and Yusuf. And as such, that they have such a high incentive with the puppy child that they want to keep as their own. I don't see that ever as ever being a viable option for me and for Yusuf. I don't know where Yusuf is. I know he's in the state of California, or so I've been told. I know that his adoption cannot be finalized until I've exhausted all of my appellate rights. But I know that the county and the Bureau, the state, have very deep pockets, especially when they're incentivized by this Title IV, the pool of money that they have to dip into. It makes it a very scary and a very daunting reality.
And I also know that even if they start moving towards reunification, they will drag that out so long, and they will use the separation against you as an argument for why you should not be reunified.
Yep. They did, in fact. They did, in fact, do that with Yusuf. The social worker was on a medical leave for 7 months. For 7 months, and during that 7 months, they were not allowing anybody. There was nobody checking in with me, and they considered that I was not doing anything for my quote-unquote case plan. I had done everything on the case plan, but I could not get a hold of anybody for 7 months, and that was a part of their hourglass, their ticking time bomb that ticks away. It does not get held, does not get stopped. So these social workers get to go on paid medical leave for 7 months. All the while, the clock is ticking against the reality of the rest of my child's life.
Yes.
And the potential for reunification. So the judge said that she didn't think, even though there was 2 months shy left, the trial was concluded at 17 months. They concluded that there was 2 months before the 18 months. I think it can go up to 25 on certain circumstances, 25 months. But it's a ticking bomb. That if you don't meet the county's standard or requirement or whatever it is, however subjectively they want to interpret that child has exhausted all of the court's jurisdiction over that child, and that he needs to be permanently or freed for permanency adoption. And there is nothing that can be more unjust for that child. Yusuf, I did everything on the case plan. In the end, they said that I was not respectful to other people. Even though I did all their drug testing that they told me to do, even though I moved to another environment, even though I went to my weekly therapy, even though I went to my parenting classes, even though I checked in with my social worker, I did all of these things that they just did not believe that I was a changed person, that I did not recognize how I caused all of this to happen. And inevitably, they opted for Yusuf to be put for closed adoption. They villainized me. They villainized anybody who associated themselves with me. My doctors, the psychological.
They have absolute power, and the sad part is that they make you believe that, they make you doubt yourself when they are the criminals. They are the ones stealing children. They've got your baby in their. Say that again.
They want you to agree with that, and I'm not going to agree that I was a bad mother. I don't agree with that. I've done everything you told me to do.
Absolutely not. You were targeted.
You were targeted. You know what? I have 3 callers with their hands raised. I think that we're not getting any background noise, so I'm going to keep everybody that's live. So that would be Judy, Michelle, and I'm going to bring in. I have 2 numbers from the 856 area. Do you think that those are people that you know, Khulud?
I don't know what area code that is.
Okay, I have 2. I'm going to call the one that's ending it's ending in 06, and they've been waiting the longest.
Okay, well, bring her on.
And you are a wonderful mother. You were a wonderful mother, and you still are. And you're still fighting for your right to your child.
Okay, 856, you're live at the 4th branch.
Hi, it's Charlene. Is this open?
Yes.
Khulud,
yes,
how you doing, hon?
Hi, Charlene. I'm hanging in there. Thank you. Thank you for calling in.
There's something that I wanted to touch for Khulud that nobody has brought up yet, and it's very important. And that is charges against the landlord for landlord retaliation. Landlord retaliation was brought up from the beginning on Khulud. What happened was the landlord used Khulud in order for her not to expose herself on what she had done wrong with her unit. Khulud does have landlord retaliation to the highest form. The highest form is that landlord used attempted kidnapping by utilizing the court system in fraudulent court proceedings, which used the government to also seize her child and kidnap her child. If we go back to the original source, which is the landlord, whoever was involved at that point, needs to be arrested ASAP. Get handcuffs on that landlord. We're going to go back to the beginning. If there's no landlord on the hearsay, then there's no case. Also, Khulud,
I don't know if that.
Yes, it's correct. Listen, I've been with CPS. I'm a foster mother. I've been a foster mother and an adopted mother for 25 years. I'm an umbrella for my family and friends. I've been doing this since the age of 10. I've been taking care of kids since the age of 10. My mother tried to kill us when we were little. At this point, with 25 years experience with CPS, I've learned every trick of the trade for my family. I couldn't beat them. I had to join them. Collude, at this point, you need to rally and get everybody to rally with you. You need to get handcuffs on them.
I'm working on that.
Once you break through from the beginning, you're right back to where you started on day one. Day one, if you bust out that foundation, there is nothing left of that building.
I hear you. I just, knowing Contra Costa County courts and how corrupt they are, it just leaves me it just goes back into their jurisdiction, and I can't tell you how corrupt that courtroom is.
That's where we need people to rally around you on that phase. On that phase, once that is put through, what you're doing is you're showing that the character that caused all of this is a fraudulent character in which there should be nothing in this case at all for this child.
But I don't imagine that the courts are going to backtrack based on that they made a bad decision at that early in the. What do you mean? Wouldn't
backtrack? This is an ongoing. This is still an ongoing of 2 years of what they've done and the harm and the damage that they caused. This is not over yet. Her child was taken because of their wrongdoings. This is a fraudulent case.
I understand what you're saying.
But
the court just never wants to admit a mistake.
Nobody's saying the court's admitting a mistake. What we're saying is that the original source, which was fraudulent, needs to be arrested. She's going after for landlord retaliation. Landlord retaliation is that the landlord caused this by trying to cover up what she did by her unit not being fit for a rental. So instead of her having to go to court and evict properly, she used the system for her own personal agenda in a way to get Youssef and Collude out of that unit without the landlord being exposed at her fraudulent unit that she rented out. She found an easy way to evict fast, which is illegal.
Had you ever heard about that? Landlord-client relationship. And so if she goes after the landlord, that's going to be with the landlord. And
the landlord
then she would have to go to the children and youth then.
The landlord is the original source of how this all started on her housing not being fit for her and her child for safe living. Her safe living was taken away by the landlord being fraudulent, in which she thought she secured a place in a safe living for herself and her child.
I see Collude. Collude has, Youssef's picture here, and what you're saying, Charlene, would be like amazing. If it were that.
Not only that, but we also have another issue. We have an issue that Collude is a dual citizen.
I know. There's thousands of her. There's thousands and thousands and thousands. It's the Title IV funding is why they're taking people.
We're not going after that. We're not going for that. What we're going for is the exposure of why this was done from the beginning. We're not going after the money. We're not talking and walking around with signs. We're talking about actually holding someone accountable for what they did to this woman and her child to get her child back. You have to squash it. It has to be stopped. Collude's not here to walk around with signs anymore. She's done with that. Collude now needs to take an action. The actions have to be handcuffs all the way from the bottom all the way to the top. It's all corrupt. Everything that was done was corrupt.
So, Charlene, it's a great idea. I don't know. I mean, we're giving Collude some ideas. She's about to have her time completely taken over here in the next few months of her life, and I know that.
And this is why this action has to be done now. The timeline is running out. You can't be walking around with signs. That's over with. Right now, she's on a timeline and also another child on the way. Collude is a dual citizen.
We didn't want her to go standing with signs.
That's not what I'm saying.
Okay, hang on.
That's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm saying now is action has to be done. She also has another child on the way. She's another target now. This all has to be wrapped up. If you're going to wrap it up, then action needs to be taken. The action needs to be taken from the beginning.
I think what you're saying is very sensible, and I thank you for your idea. I have a caller who hardly ever wants to speak up, but he obviously wants to say something here, so I'm going to bring a 312 number in. Hello, 312, you're live at the Fourth Branch.
Hello, Debbie. So I've been listening, and I wanted to just mention something. And what I want to mention to Khulud is that there's an attorney that she could actually trust. Have you heard of Sean McMillan?
Yes, Sean McMillan is. He said he wouldn't take a case down in Northern California. I sent him comprehensive feedback on my case, and I've been in constant contact. He's very good at what he does, and I would be very, very overjoyed to have him represent me. But he said that he does not take anything in Northern California. Unfortunately, I don't know.
Doesn't.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Well, that's really unfortunate.
Yeah, he's really good because he took on San Diego CPS and overturned them and sued them, and he's really the person for the job. What did you say your name was, sir?
Yeah, my name's Gil, and
Hi, Gil.
I'm familiar with that case. I'm familiar with everything you guys have talked about tonight, but not from the standpoint of Title IV-E, but rather from the standpoint of Title IV-D in the family courts.
Family courts. Yeah.
And so, you know, I generally agree with most of everything that has been brought up. Frankly, I think your focus right now ought to be stopping the proceedings that are moving on ahead right now with Youssef.
Yep.
You could go after the landlord. Certainly. And the thing that you should focus on, in my humble opinion, is stopping the clock on what's going on with Youssef.
That's right.
They've already terminated
my parental rights with Youssef.
Now you can overturn it.
I want to, and that's what we're fighting on. But they say we can only fight that in the appellate court.
Multiple people speaking here, and I can't have that. So
I beg your pardon.
Yeah, I actually want to just see who else has their hands raised because I know that I wouldn't want to leave out anybody who's been waiting. Gil, I want to thank you for calling.
Hey, Debbie.
Who's done?
Because can I just mention some other points?
These people want to keep dragging this out. This ain't right. I'm trying to hang this up.
Okay, Debbie, you've lost control of the whole conversation. Who can speak right now?
So you're talking.
Well, thank you. Okay, and so if you can't get a hold of Sean McMillan, have you checked with him to see who he may recommend who can help you? Or
David,
or if you go down to...
He recommended David Bouvet, and I'm still waiting to hear back from David Bouvet. I reached out to him and his, I believe his paralegal, so I'm just waiting to hear back to see if they can facilitate any sort of support here.
Yeah, unfortunately, there aren't very many that many attorneys that litigate against CPS in California or probably around the country in general. And Khulud has reached out to a lot of them. She's done a really great job. But hopefully, there's actually more attorneys will start covering these issues. We're hoping over the next few years.
Absolutely.
Right. I mean, we know there's a shortage. So I'm going to go ahead and bring in. I have 90 seconds of the regular show left. I'm going to bring in
Debbie. Hang on one second. Let me finish, and I'll turn it over. But I keep getting interrupted, and I couldn't even get a word in here edgewise.
Okay, come on, Gil.
Look, what you need to do, Khulud, is you sound like a very intelligent woman, an intelligent person, and you thought about going pro se. I would spend some time with Sean McMillan and see what you can learn from him. I would talk to whomever you can to get some pointers in establishing your case, because the clock is ticking. You've got to put a stop to what's going on with Youssef. You can worry about the landlord at some point. All you got to do is know what the statute of limitation is in terms of you bringing a case against that landlord. Once you know what that is, whether it's 2 years, whether it's 4 years, whatever it is in the state of California, okay, on what tort you can litigate on, let that be marked on your calendar, because that's something you can work on. Right now, the priority ought to be getting a stop on what's going on with the adoption, because that's going on. So I'm glad you've talked to Sean McMillan. He's given you a reference. I would seriously look at filing some kind of a separate lawsuit. Forget about going back to the CPS courts or whatever this administrative court is. You need to separate from that courtroom and open up a fresh lawsuit in which you now are taking on those corrupt players in a new case. That's what Sean McMillan would do for you. And I think you need to, and unfortunately, if he can't take a case in Northern California, you've got to, you're best to argue, and you just need some pointers. Talk to Ed, get some pointers, and seriously, look into going pro se by opening up a brand new lawsuit. That will slow things down.
I will.
Right,
Thank
Gil.
you very much, Gail. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Anytime.
I have two other callers. I have two other callers, and I'm trying to get them in before it is actually past the hour, the 9 o'clock hour here. But I can still go on and bring these two people in, and then we need to let Khulud have a break. So a 541 number. Hello, you're live at the 4th branch.
Yeah, this is Ed again, and he's telling the truth. You want to open up the case, bring it in. You got my number, you got my information. I'll help and walk you through some of the process. I'm sending you an email right now on the deal, so read it. I put the court cases up there for you to read. Thank you.
All right, thank you. That was helpful. I mean, we're getting some, so I have another 856 number.
You.
Hi.
No, I'm not. You.
856, you're live.
You. Hello?
Hello?
Can you hear me?
There. Yes, but there's a lot of background noise.
Is that better?
That's better. Yep.
I just wanted to call and say that I agreed with Charlene and Gil. I'm not sure who they are, but that she has to start with the landlord and filing a suit with all that and put CPS on the side. Stop it.
Okay, well, those are both kind of conflicting suggestions. What is your name?
Chris.
Okay, Chris. And Khulud, do you know who this is?
I do not.
I've been following on Facebook.
Okay. Yeah. Well, so Chris, thank you for calling, and I know Khulud appreciates just having people who she doesn't even know are following, but they're concerned about her. We're concerned about Youssef.
Thank you all. Thank you.
And you know what? I know you need to get a break. I just want you to know that you have a lot of support, that these people don't want all of us paying attention to your case, and you are just you're heroic in your efforts to protect your child, to be with your child, to do everything you can to reclaim his birthright for him. And we're praying with you, hon.
Thank you, Debbie. In the end, it's all about our children. So, there is power in numbers, and I really appreciate it. And if we can all just try to work together in, a cohesive, civil way to bring about change, that's really, that's the best thing that can happen for all of our children and for Youssef. I missed him so much. I can't imagine. I can't even fathom life without him. Thank you all. Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you. Prayers are important too, and I just want to stress that there are power in numbers. Please don't give up on Youssef.
We won't.
You're not alone. You're not alone.
You're not alone. We're praying for you. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and conclude the show. I appreciate everybody who called in. I appreciate all of the supportive ideas, and we know like there's only so much one person can handle at a time, and we want to send you our strength as well. We want to send you hope, and I want to say thanks to everybody and good night.
Thank you and good night. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for using Blog Talk Radio. Goodbye.